Hello, and welcome back to another Craig and Dave Unscripted. So, a nice, easy, relaxed one for me and Dave today. No guest speakers, no ministry of silly algorithm winners. We're just going to give you a little update on sort of where we're heading, and not just in terms of Smart Revise that we spent quite a bit of time in talking about the last few weeks, but just company as a whole. What have we got on the rise and what's coming up? What do we want to tell you about? What we're excited about? What we're doing? So we'll dive straight in. What are we working on now? Oh, I'm very excited about this first one. Probably more excited than anyone else is going to be who sees this. But way yes, we're going to be at the BETT show in January. So it's official now. We've paid our deposit. We're there. We undernerd the last few years, didn't we? And then obviously with the pandemic, the show's not been going on, but we feel it's time to be there. And we know people have asked in the past, are you guys going to be at BETT? You weren't at BETT. It was always a big decision for us as a growing company, but we are going to be there 19th to 21st of January. Come see us, stand NA55, just behind Unity, stone's throw from Microsoft. We're up there with the big boys.
Well, that's perhaps a slight exaggeration, Craig, but we are definitely over the way from Microsoft.
We're at the same show as the big boys. I wasn't trying to imply we're anywhere near the same level, but yeah. I mean, anything else you want to add about? I'm excited about this, Dave. It's I don't mind it. It's our first trade show. It's a big commitment, but
yeah, I think maybe for teachers that have never been to BETT before, perhaps you would like to sort of just tell the audience a little bit about what BETT is in a nutshell, and tell them where it is, because it doesn't tell them where it is on that logo.
No, that's true. Well, I mean, first of all, it's at the Excel Exhibition Centre at the I want to say at the Docks. Yes, at the Docklands in London. So you can obviously just look up BETT, but it's very, very, very easy to get to if you're traveling to London. There's literally Docklands Light Railway train station pops out into the venue. So it's at the Excel Centre, and it's an education stroke sort of education ed tech show. It's the biggest one of its kind in Europe. So obviously we're going to be there advertising everything we do, from our teaching resources to Smart Revise. But I mean, it's much more than just that. I mentioned Microsoft earlier. I mean, all the tech giants are there. Obviously showing what they're doing in education, what they have available. So Microsoft are there, Unity. I start naming companies, but pretty much if you use a big software solution in school for homework, maybe whatever it is, they're all there. They're all there. There's events, there are talks, there are guest speakers about pedagogy. The exam boards are all tend to be there every year as well with their subject reps. I mean, we've been going for years. In fact, my very first time at BETT, Dave, was when you took me as a trainee. So I think I've definitely mentioned this on one of our early videos. Dave used to be my PGCE pathway mentor 17 years ago, and one of Dave's sessions was take all the trainees to BETT. We thought it was great. It was just like a day out for him. But yeah, take all the trainees to BETT. And in terms of education shows, it is the big one. It is the big one. I would say it has a shift or a leaning towards tech in education, but it's more than that. There's plenty of people exhibit there which have nothing to do with tech, just sort of pushing new pedagogy, new ways of learning, and everything else is there. I mean, you can turn up as an IT technician, and there are people there selling stands and racking and new cabling solutions. I mean, the event is enormous. It's enormous.
Yeah, and I think it would be fair to say that for all teachers, really, I regard it as a bit of a pilgrimage. I think regardless of what subjects you teach, I think once in your career you should go to BETT. And I'm not saying that because we're going to be there. I'm saying that because genuinely, I think for all teachers in England, and certainly possibly even in Europe, you should try and make one trip to BETT just to sort of see what it's all about, and you discover lots of new things that otherwise you wouldn't have done. So it's definitely worth a visit at least once. I mean, like you say, Craig, I've probably been don't know, at least 15 times, I would think. But this is the first time we're actually going to go there as exhibitors rather than just for a jolly. So that's going to be really, really exciting. And I guess it's probably appropriate that I say thank you to everybody that's ever bought any of our resources, you know, whether that's our classroom materials, whether that's Smart Revise, whether it's our textbooks, whatever it is that you've bought, thank you, because that has all contributed to us being able to exhibit at BETT. It's not cheap, but we want to do it because we just feel that it is the place that you do get to connect with some of the people that are using your resources, and it's a great place to go and do demonstrations of the product and to talk to people about pedagogy and teaching and learning and whatnot. It just feels like we have to do it at least once, and we might not ever be able to afford it again.
Yeah, by the time we've got to the end of the 4-day event on our feet, we may decide we're never doing it again. But yeah, that's it. So if you're umming and erring and have never been before, what more of an excuse do you need? come say hello. Yeah,
we can dispel all those myths, Craig, that we're actually the same person. You know, you can actually shake hands with us both.
Yes, please. Yes, come along, shake hands, tweet a photo of both of us there, because we are different people despite some popular myths. Right.
So okay, let's have a quick look at the floor map then. Let's just quickly show people where we're going to be. There we are. So it is enormous. We've zoomed right in here just to show you roughly where we are, but we're right behind Unity, across the way from Microsoft, and we'll be there. So it'd be good to see you. If you are going to go to BETT, then it'd be great for you just to pop along, say hello, and you know, we always really like that. Whenever we go to events, the highlight for us is meeting you and listening to people saying, oh, I'm using your resources like this, and what do you think about that? And just sharing and exchanging ideas about how to use our resources, and also get some ideas about some of the things you'd like us to produce in the future as well. So having those conversations are really sort of why we do all this. So come along and say hello if you're going.
They're really valuable to us. Just to double down on that point, Dave, those conversations with, you know, our customers, you know, teachers. We're teachers, we still teach, and we say it a lot, but a lot of the stuff we do in terms of our teaching resources through a subscription, and most certainly through the new features that we keep introducing in Smart Revise, a lot of that stuff comes from what you guys ask. Otherwise, Dave and I are here going, well, we think the community want this, and we get it right most of the time because, you know, we're practicing teachers. But, you know, a lot of what we do and how we've shaped and how we've grown has come from teachers that email us, teachers that talk to us. So yeah, absolutely. Right. That's a big point.
Before we go on as well, I'd just like to sort of put on record really sort of formal thanks as well to our school, and particularly to our head teacher who is supporting us going to this event, because it is during the school days. Is it Wednesday, Thursday and Friday, Craig? Is that right?
I think you are correct. Yes, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
It is. Yeah. So, you know, we will be missing school. I will be missing lessons. And I'd just like to thank the head teacher for supporting us in this. And, you know, he has a very contemporary outlook on the role of teachers in school, and supporting us to be the best that we can be for our teaching, so that we can then bring that back into our classrooms for our learners. He sees that as an investment. And I know that a lot of head teachers out there don't really like teachers, you know, going out of the school onto various events, and certainly not to a trade show. So just formal thanks really to our school for not just supporting us in our endeavours, but having that forward thinking opinion of this is about making our teaching better as well.
No, that is lovely, isn't it? Because you're right, we're under contract for that 1 day a week we do, and he has every right to say no, and there's not a lot we can do about it. So you're absolutely right. That's very appreciative. Right, so that's the big one. But what we also wanted to do was update you in terms of our resources, what's coming, what we're working on now, and also Smart Revise as well, what we're working on and what's coming. So several things here. Do you want to? I'll tell you what, I'll start this off because I'm working on this one. So a lot of you who use our GCSE resources will be aware of our text-based adventure game in Python called Telium. We see a lot of chat about it on the forums. A lot of people use it now as a replacement as the NEA's gone, but the students still need to have a substantial programming experience. And yes, you've taught them lots of little programs, but is there something a bit more meaty? Yeah, this is a great example. It's 8 objectives. It can be done over sort of 5 to 10 lessons, and since we introduced Telium a long time ago, it's actually Dave's child this, so he wrote this and came up with it. But since they introduced it, we've obviously updated our programming resources to follow the T.I.M.E approach. And Dave will come on to the changes we're making to those as well due to your feedback. But Telium has fallen by the wayside. Well, not fallen by the wayside, but it's in the old model. So we're timifying. I think I made that word up. We're timifying our Telium resources, and also taking the opportunity just to add a bit more jazz in there. Look at all the extension tasks for those teachers that maybe want to lead Telium a bit more from the front as part of an extended project, or their own sort of deep learning day or Easter revision session or whatever. We're delivering a PowerPoint that can or can't be used, and we're road testing this ourselves next Monday. We're in school, both of us, on Monday, doing a deep learning day all day, lessons 1 through 5 with the year 11. So we're going to road test these, and then once we've tweaked it, we'll push that out to the community. So if you like our Telium stuff, I really think you're going to love the version 2 we do. And if you haven't used it before or unaware of it, it's in the GCSE downloads. I'll look at maybe pulling it out and putting it somewhere more prominent, because you do have to have the GCSE download and then dig about to find it. But yeah, if you haven't tried it, check it out. Version 2 will be coming shortly. Is there anything else you want to say about that, or just I've kind of linked into time? This is really your
Yeah,
baby.
absolutely. It's yeah, I think you've basically summed it up. We're formalizing. We're not radically changing the content. The game is still the game, but we're just formalizing the various stages and adding in some extra comprehension questions, making them fit the block model that we use, and just formalizing that project up so that it looks like one of our programming resources, because as Craig said, it's in an old format now. So we just want to standardize things a bit there, and while we're doing it, add some new things too. So that brings us on to T.I.M.E then. So T.I.M E we kind of silently launched about 12 months ago, and it's our take on PRIM. So for teaching programming, I'm sure you're very familiar with Sue Sentence's PRIM model, which is to predict, run, investigate, modify, and make. We didn't think that acronym made any sense. So we invented our own, which we call T.I.M E, but it's exactly the same thing, really. So it's try, investigate, make, and evaluate. And it's an approach to learning programming over 10 objectives. We took a very bold approach with this. We swept away what was considered sort of traditional approaches to programming and went for something that was very new and contemporary. And leading the way was a functions first approach. This idea that you don't leave the teaching of subroutines till much later. You learn subroutines right from the very first program. And if you get those habits of structured programming in place, and if you understand the concept of passing parameters early, then it doesn't become a mystery later. And we just sort of thought to ourselves, well, if indenting code's important, if comments are important, and sensible variable names are important, then surely structured approaches are important too, because they fit into that mold of maintainable programs. But we realize that's a massive challenge for students, because that's not how they've been taught at Key Stage 3. Now, I make no apologies for that, because I do think Key Stage 4 should be a step up from Key Stage 3. We shouldn't just be repeating everything that we've taught them before. So I do think it's appropriate, but it is a little bit of a shock. So we need to take a bit of a step back and then introduce back in their inputs, because we took inputs away from the first objective to focus on a functions first approach, and inputs come much later in our scheme, where we do some validation. because of course you don't need an input to pass it into a function. You could just hard code the value in. So that's a bit of a shock for some teachers and students. We're just going to take a step back. We're not getting rid of the functions first approach, but we are going to sort of have a more gentle introduction to it by reintroducing inputs nice and early. So that's one of the key things. We also know that it's a bit text heavy. I'll be honest, when I created those resources, it was with the sort of top end A-level students in mind at the time, and it does need sort of bringing a little bit back down towards GCSE, and I appreciate that. So thanks for your feedback on all that. We'll do that. We'll probably strip out some of the teaching aspects that are on the slide that make them quite dry, probably put those in videos, and then look at ways of making those slides a little bit more appealing, hopefully. We also want to change all the programs from a Pascal case to PEP8 standards. And I know the volume of work that's involved in this, and I really apologize for those of you that know what I'm talking about. We adopted a Pascal case standard in our programming because we thought it would be universal. What I didn't realize at the time is that if you're using PyCharm, it flags up all those variable names in Pascal case with warnings to say, oh, this doesn't meet the standards. Well, it does meet a standard. It just doesn't meet the PEP8 standards that PyCharm is using. So although you can disable that in PyCharm, we didn't really think that was appropriate. So hey, to make it a little bit more universally acceptable, we're going to go back through and change our standard from Pascal case to PEP8. So apologies to those of you that might upset, but it should be fine for everybody, I would think. We're only changing the case on the variable names and going back to using underscores that we were doing before. It's not a big deal. What is perhaps a big deal, and I'm sorry to have to report this, but we're not going to do a Java version. I tasked my son with converting all our programs into Java because he's a Java programmer. And he said, well, you've got a couple of problems with this, with your functions first approach, because some of your functions are returning more than one value. And whilst you can do that in Pascal and C# and Visual Basic, no problem at all, to do the same thing in Java, you need to be able to return a list or an array or something else like that, you know, an object or something. And I thought, oh, you know, functions first is a bit of a hurdle for students. Do I really want to introduce arrays into the first objective as well, even if I did it silently and didn't really say they were an array? And I just felt it's probably a bit too much too soon. And rather than recreating all the programs and problems we've already got so they only return one value, which introduces its own complexity, it's easier for us just to say, I'm sorry, we don't support Java, and that's just going to be the way it is, I'm afraid. But there we are. There are plenty of Java resources out there that you could use instead of ours, so apologies for that. Anyway, on to more exciting news, Craig. What else we got going on?
Well, the Essential Algorithms book. Hey, actually, I'm just going to reach up to the shelf here. So I'll just unshare that for a second. So Dave and I's first attempt at publishing a book. It's been successful. Some excellent reviews on Amazon. So we released this a couple of years ago, Essential Algorithms for A-Level Computer Science. And ever since we released it, we knew there's some more things we wanted to put in here, some tweaks we wanted to make. A lot of implementations are done using sort of arrays, and then some are done using objects. And it was like, okay, we want to standardize this, add in some different implementations. And you know, Dave and I as well, we're always learning, and we constantly find ourselves amazed at something we learned, and we've got an extra level of depth and detail there. And wouldn't it be great if we added that into the book? Anyway, it got to a point where we were like, yeah, it's time to do a second edition of this book. And it started off as me, as a lot of people are aware, I spent the last year doing the remastered series of A-level videos. And as part of that remastered series, I produced details videos on all the algorithms and data structures. And as I was producing them, I was going through this book and not finding mistakes, but just finding little extra things we could do, some little inconsistencies. So I created a big list of things like tweaks, like, Dave, I've got tweaks for a second edition. So Dave picked up my list when I'd finished the remastered series and said, right, I'll whiz through that, we'll make a second edition. But Dave's head doesn't work like that, does it? He starts working through the tweaks and the updates, and before we know it, this has turned almost into an unrecognizable second version. Yeah, I want to do this, I want to do that. I mean, it's not just the first edition with a few tweaks and minor corrections. And it's probably fair, because you've done the bulk of this work, to hand over you to explain. I mean, firstly, the title's changed. It's Essential Algorithms and Data Structures, because we cannot really separate those two things now. And I'm really impressed with the work you've done on the second edition, despite the fact you thought it was going to be a couple of weeks' works, and it's actually been about 6 months. But yeah, what did you want to add about that?
Yeah, well, the page count is actually bigger than it is now, but I've stripped all the Visual Basic code out. So that kind of shows you how much additional content we've got going into this book. I just thought with the Visual Basic programs as well, it was just going to be too big, and the publishing costs will probably be too high. So we've stripped the Visual Basic programs out, but they will be downloadable. Okay, they will still be downloadable, and we're making C# versions of them as well, so they'll all be downloadable. So you're not really losing anything, you're just gaining. And instead of duplicating the algorithms with 2 different implementations in 2 different languages within the book, we will just show Python code in the book in the PEP 8 standard. So that's all been changed, and we'll put the other downloads available for you as well. But we're introducing more formally lists, objects, and record data types to better reflect the specifications, and also a lot more detail about the difference between, for example, an array and a list and a linked list, because people get very confused with all those things, and those words are often used synonymously, even though they're not. So we'll also talk about memory allocation and usage in the book that we weren't doing before. So lots of little tweaks, as Craig says, and a few major ones along the way as well. So that's the new book. Can't tell you exactly when it's going to be available, because it's being proofread at the moment. And once we've got through that, and I've finished converting all the algorithms to C#, then we will release it.
Yeah, Dave mentioned during that, it's probably worth mentioning, if you're not already aware, regardless of whether you have the book, we have a completely free site, and it's just craigandDave.org/algorithms. The QR code is in the front of the current edition of the book and the new version, but you don't require the book to have access to this. There's not a username or password on it, and it goes through. There's the download Dave was talking about. So there are fully coded algorithms in Python, Visual Basic, and C# to support the book. And then what we've done is, obviously, we've got all these videos across YouTube, which you're aware, over 900 now, but we've pulled all the algorithm and data structure ones together into this web page. So we've got some generic videos here on designing and writing algorithms, and then we've pulled out the most appropriate videos depending on the exam board you are covering. So these are all the videos you'll be used to on YouTube, but then the main chapters of our book appear here: data structures, searching algorithms, etc., etc. These match the colors of the chapters in the book, and these videos all link to the book, and again, appropriate versions for the various exam boards, depending on the level of depth and detail that those exam boards want you to know those data structures and those algorithms. So this kind of website, which is designed to obviously support the book, but it's freely accessible. You can access it. Excellent resource for your students and indeed for yourself as a teacher. So
quick caveat there, though. Although we have updated the website, I just want you to be aware that at the moment, the C# algorithms aren't in that zip file, because I'm still writing them. I'm still converting them at the moment. But Craig's gone ahead and updated the website in preparation for the release, which is relatively imminent. So it won't be too long now. We actually had an undergraduate write to us a few weeks ago to say that they were doing a degree in computer science, and how useful they were finding our videos and our algorithms, which was a little bit of a surprise, because really they're intended for A-level and some of them for GCSE. So we're glad to be of assistance to anybody studying computer science. So they're downloadable. So if you're a student looking at Dijkstra's algorithm and thinking, how would I possibly code that in Python? well, I've done it. So you can download my
Go and have a
source
look.
code and you can give it a run and see what happens there.
Yeah, and in terms of other activities, I mean, and other resources, Dave's mentioned A-level activities here, and we'll touch on these in a minute, but we constantly over the last, well, ever since we started, to be honest, but over the last year or two, we're constantly making updates and tweaks, additions, improvements across our teaching resources at GCSE and A-level, more so at A-level because they were some of the first resources we produced over 5 years ago. So if you're a teacher that's still working off an old version of, say, our A-level resources that you downloaded 4 years ago, please do yourself a favor and download all the latest zip files. There is so much more content in there now, and it'd be difficult to say exactly where that content is because we keep adding to it. Over the summer holidays, one of the jobs I did was did a complete refresh of the schemes of learning because so many of the activities have changed, tweaked, been improved, added to, enhanced. So yes, if you've been with us for a while, it's definitely worth checking in and sort of re-downloading all our material. A lot of the time we do see on the forums, oh, this is not this, or I've downloaded that, but you haven't got it. And we're like, you're running off a version from 3 years ago. It's in there. But specifically, Dave's listed a few things here. We know there's some areas which are still challenging. And we're always looking to add in some extra activities. So what have we got here? Oh, the scheduling algorithm games. Oh, this is another one of Dave's beauties. I enjoy this. Go on. You need to tell them about that.
Well, it's what's called a roll and write game. So the idea is that you roll some dice and then you decide what you want to do with those dice, and you write various numbers and scores on your scorecard. And then at the end of the game, you add up your points and see who the winner is. So I've created a game that uses the first come first serve algorithm. It's quite enjoyable. You can play it with any number of students in the class simultaneously. You only need 2 dice, which can be done online as well because there are online dice rollers. And that goes down really well with students. I play tested it last year when we were doing SLR4, and I'd quite like to make some variations of the first come first serve game so that you can illustrate some of the other scheduling algorithms as well, like round robin and shortest remaining time and things like that. But it needs balancing. Well, sometimes when you think you've got a good idea, and when you play the game, you realize that actually there's a single path to victory, and that isn't going to make the game very fun once you've worked out what it is. So balancing these games and trying to find different ways to win is quite a challenge. I'm not a board game designer, but I enjoy having a go. So at some point those will be released, but if I don't manage to balance the other versions, we will be releasing the first come first serve game in advance of SLR4 if you're an A-level teacher. And Craig and I will play it online in an unscripted series and show you what it's all about. That sounds like a bit of fun.
Definitely.
We're always looking at new materials, and it does dishearten us a little bit actually when some teachers say, oh, all you've got is workbooks and activities, and they haven't really spent some time looking at what those activities are, or indeed what the pages of the workbooks ask the students to do. There's a huge variety of different activities. It isn't just fill in the boxes. And there's all sorts of little games and little things to do in there. I mean, for example, at GCSE with abstraction, our activity is to make paper aeroplanes and see who can make the aeroplane that flies the furthest, and talk about the abstraction involved in all that. But if you just pick up our workbooks and you look at them at face value, you think, oh, the students are just going through slides and filling in the pages. They are to a certain extent, but have a deeper look at some of these activities. At A-level, we teach multi-core processors by having a rock, paper, scissors competition in class. And our resources are stuffed full of these innovative ideas, and we create new ones every year. So as Craig said, if you haven't downloaded our materials for a couple of years and you're still a member, really, download them. I would recommend downloading them in the August holidays every single year. That would be a good idea.
Yeah, and a few other tweaks that Dave's put in there. So lots of lots of new stuff coming, and always new stuff coming. If you subscribe, we do send this stuff out in mail shots to you as well. But as Dave said, safest bet is just to do a fresh download before the start of each academic year. So YouTube, yes. So our Unscripted series, well, that's going all right. We're still here. We're on episode 20 something now. I can't quite think what this one is.
24, I think it is 24.
Yeah, I mean, some people seem to be liking it. So, yeah, I mean, you'll know the style. We didn't really know what we're going to do to start with, but we seem to have found a bit of momentum with it. We have some guest speakers. We give you updates about ourselves. We've done the odd educational discussion. We introduced our ministry of silly algorithms. But one thing that's going to be new and we're going to get into is what we're calling our deeper dive. Again, if you are used to our A-level videos and some of our GCSE ones now, we have this kind of beyond the spec section where we teach the concept of the video, but we feel it's doing a disservice if we don't just mention a little extra thing, and you won't be examined on it. It's not essential. If you want to stop the video at that point, that's okay, but there's more to it. There's another layer of abstraction we can peel away. There's always another layer of abstraction we can peel away. And we really got into this kind of beyond the spec section. But that usually only goes to like the next level. We want to do a bit of a deeper dive series, and full caveat, you're not going to be examined on this stuff at GCSE or A-level computer science, but it's just looking under the hood. How does some of the stuff really work? And some of this is totally new to me and Dave. We're learning it by reading it and researching it the first time, but it's fascinating. And how on earth can we talk about that to our community? Because it's really interesting. Well, Unscripted is perfect. We can put the disclaimer right up there. This is just a bit of can I say geek out? Yeah, I can. A bit of a geek out nerd series. Feel proud to be a nerd. It won't be in the exam, but it's fascinating. So I think that probably explains a bit what that is. We wanted to do it for ages, but never really found a format to fit it in because we couldn't really justify, could we, putting the time and effort into doing it and then selling it as a resource. It's like, well, the kids are never going to be examined on this. What's this about? But Unscripted has kind of provided us with a vehicle to dig this one back out and do it. See how carried away we get. But hopefully you'll like it.
Yeah, and as usual, we don't claim to be professional YouTubers. No. It's a bit of a side thing on what we do, really. So, don't expect amazing sort of production value. It'll be in the Craig and Dave format that you know and hate. So, that will be the way it is. But the important thing is that it's an opportunity for us to continue learning as well. It's very easy for us to produce a video on a bubble sort, for example, because we know that inside out. And this is an opportunity for us to question ourselves and say, well, how does that really work? And why was that really a problem with some of the things that sort of happen in the world related to computer science? And so it's an opportunity for us to learn some new things and then to present them to you. And I think that'll be interesting. And I'm deliberately not going to learn some of this stuff so that Craig can teach me live on the Unscripted series, and I can ask him all the silly questions that somebody that doesn't know the content is likely to ask. So I think that should be a little bit of fun, and it provides more content for our YouTube channel, because we've struggled a little bit with the audience in the sense that the content we make is either for teachers or it's for students. And satisfying both audiences at the same time on the same channel is actually quite hard. We didn't want to have a second channel because that just sort of dilutes the subscribers, and it doesn't work out particularly well unless you're a very big YouTuber. So we want to keep the community together on one channel, but having some videos that are for teachers and some that are for students, it's a little bit awkward, I will be honest. And so the deeper dive allows us to say, if you're interested in computer science, this will be interesting to you. It doesn't matter whether you're a teacher, whether you're a student, whether you're an undergraduate, whether you've just got a passing interest in computer science. So we just want to have some more content on the channel that is going to be interesting for everyone.
Excellent. And I'm just going to finish off really with Smart Revise. I don't think we probably need to talk about this in detail, Dave, but we can maybe put some highlights. So obviously we've spent the last few weeks talking about Smart Revise with the release of Smart Tasks, but also letting you know that, as always, development is not stagnant, and even Smart Tasks was only version 1 of Smart Tasks, and since then we've already released a couple of new features, and our developers hot on the tail of doing others. So really it was just kind of summing up as part of our whole company roadmap, just a reminder really on what we're doing with Smart Revise and where it's going. So do you want to sort of pull out any particular highlights there, Dave?
Yeah, well, I'm not going to go through the list because you can pause the video if you're interested in Smart Revise and see sort of what's coming. We haven't shared this level of detail with you before,
No.
so there are some things in here we haven't talked about. So by all means, pause the video and have a little look at the list. But yeah, let's pull out a few highlights. So one of the things that's actually already gone live is some customization options for the leaderboards. So leaderboards were showing every single student in the class on the leaderboard. We felt it would be better if we gave teachers a little bit more control over that. So a teacher can now choose how many students feature on the leaderboard. So if they only want the top 3 students in the class to show, they only need to show the top student. If they don't want any students to show on the leaderboards, they can disable them. And so it allows you to sort of customize that as a teacher, particularly if you've got a class and you know that there are going to be 6 or 7 students at the bottom that are always going to be at the bottom. It's a little bit disheartening. You can now change the numbers that are visible on the leaderboard, so you can knock those off the list if that's.
I think it's important. We want to create a sense of competition and fun, but we also don't want to disenfranchise or dishearten students. And we think you're best placed to make that professional judgment. So that's really where that came from.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide then, Craig, and have a look at some of the other bits and pieces that we've got. Probably worth saying, one of the most requested features, and we saw this coming, it's just a question of getting things done ready for the 1st of September, being able to clone a task. That is coming, okay? We are working on that, and so you're going to be able to, as a teacher, clone a task. If you want to set the same task again to the same set of students with the same questions, you'll be able to do that. You'll also be able to set the same set of questions to another class, either in a shared class or another class that you've got, and even across series as well. So if you've got a 2022 course and a 2023 course, because you've got your year 10s and your year 11s, but you want them both to have the same set of questions in a test, you'll be able to share those question sets across the series as well. First time we've ever done anything across series in the product, so that'll be interesting. But you can also share then tasks with colleagues as well. So if you've set up an end of topic test as a head of department and you want all your colleagues to set the same topic test with their classes as well, then they will be able to, if they're in your shared class list, they'll be able to then use a clone of your task in order to set that for themselves. And as I've already said, tasks can either contain the same questions or they can contain different questions. By default, it will show the same questions, and then you can go back through the wizard to change the questions if you want it to be a different set of questions. So that's quite interesting. The other things that we haven't told you about, and these are much further down the line, okay? So we haven't told you about peer marking, students marking other students. We haven't told you about students self-marking their own tasks. So that's something that will come down the line. And so there are always new features that are coming in the future. We're currently recording some model answer videos, and to be honest, it's not Craig and I recording the model answer videos. We've got a new chap called Gavin, which we're quite excited about, and slightly jealous as well because he's in the Isle of Wight and he looks out to sea. But he's currently creating some model answer videos. So every single exam style question in Smart Revise will also come with a model answer video that we're currently working on. I'm quite excited about that. So yeah, anything that you want to pull out there, Craig, you're interested in?
No, not particularly. Just that, these aren't extra things we're adding on. We've thought about a lot of these things from the start. I mean, the peer marking and the student self-marking, that was in our very first design interface right up front, that the task has been submitted. Now the teacher can turn around and say, I'm marking all the tasks that come in. I want control. Like, whoa, no, I'm far too busy for that. I want to hive it off and get the students to peer mark. And we thought a bit about that, how that would work, and what happens if students aren't in, and the idea of marking your own tests. So, it's a case of a lot of this stuff has been in there, and some decent work's been done on thinking about it. It was just squeezing in and choosing what would be there. So it's really nice. We're receiving quite a lot of emails now, both straight to our obviously email address and also messages asking for features, and I would say a good 90% of them are features we already have roadmapped out. We've got a few new gems in there, like, oh, that's, it would be good. So keep that stuff coming in, because either we can let you know, we've got it, we're doing it, and here's where it is on a priority, or you might give us a gem of an idea that we hadn't thought of, and then we can reach out to our ambassadors. What do you think of this? But you really do help shape the product. I'm not being corny there, and I've said it already, but no, nothing particularly other than to say, the two, sorry, I don't want to jump on you here, that last two rows, oh, it's so excited, but we can't say anything. They're both, oh.
They're so exciting we can't say anything, but Craig takes a pause. What can I say?
No, well, that was it. It's like, not a lot, really.
I'll tell you what we can say.
Go on.
We can say, we hear you about subtopics, okay? Loud and clear, we hear you that you want subtopics. And we understand that if you're an OCR school, it's mildly annoying. And if you're an edXL school, it's a real problem, because you've only got 6 topics in Smart Revise at GCSE. So we get that. We are listening. We do have solutions, but the truth is we can't agree internally what the best way forward is with subtopics at the moment. So we're going to have another conversation about that and see who wins the pillow fight. And we will be delivering subtopics. So it's coming. We know some of you want dark mode. After I spent all that time thinking about how I can do sort of hot pastels and make it all nice and bright and interesting for students, we'll take all that away. And we also know that to support our dyslexic students, you'd quite like cream backgrounds or purple backgrounds and that kind of thing. So although there are browser extensions that you can use to kind of make those things happen, we'll try and get those in product for you as well. As part of the user settings. So that's something that our developers are particularly keen on achieving. So that will happen. But the undisclosed huge new features, I think, just suffice to say, the roadmap we're sharing with you here is our kind of short-term plans, really short to medium-term plans. But the actual roadmap that we've got planned out for Smart Revise goes sort of way into 2023, beyond that possibly. We have got some huge features coming, but some of them are so big, we're having to work with other people and other software developers in order to make that happen. And they're working on their own technology, their own sort of copyrighted trademark technology. And we want to be able to integrate some of that into Smart Revise. And we can't talk about that until they're ready to talk about that. And but suffice to say that if you thought quiz was a big feature when it first arrived, it was. Terms was quite a big feature when it first came. Advanced was a huge feature when it came. Tasks is massive. What we're talking about here are 2 features that we think are just going to completely change the way students and teachers use this product. If tasks didn't do that already, we've got some really amazing things lined up for the future. So thank you for your support. And it's through your support, as I said at the beginning of the video, that we can achieve that. If everybody stops buying Smart Revise, we can't develop it. And it's a really interesting conversation, actually, that everyone wants free. Everyone wants software for free. Everyone wants resources for free. The problem is, if everything is free, then nobody is developing, because there's no money in software development. So if there's no money in software development, then there are no software developers, and therefore nothing gets developed. So it really is a little bit like that. Craig and I don't create Smart Revise. We come up with a lot of the design and sort of interface ideas and the pedagogy behind it. But the actual code is done by professional developers, and they cost money. So thank you very much for your support with that. With the support we've got, we can develop these amazing features for the future.
Brilliant. Well, I think you avoided breaking any NDA there, so that's excellent. I get slightly nervous because we get excited about something, and then it's like, oh yeah, well that's brilliant. Look, we thought this would be a quick video, but then look, all the stuff we've got to tell you that we're working on. It's ended up being a 45-minute video. But look, if you stuck with us, thank you very much indeed. And just to reiterate, as always, if you have any ideas, comments, suggestions, or complaints, please just drop us an email, admin@craigandave.co.uk. Reach out to us, and you know, we'll do our best for you. We're here to serve our community of teachers and students. But yeah, until next week, thank you very much, everyone. Cheers. Bye bye.